you for your understanding and participation in that regard. However, I can see that we have a few more delegates that are still making their way into the room. However, I'd like to thank our upcoming first speaker because I can see that he is in the room. And I've also been reliably informed that members of our panel are also here and on standby. As soon as we've settled down in the next few seconds, we will be getting into the opening ceremony of the 6th International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and Exhibitions. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Please, once again, if you're seated towards the back, kindly reconsider residence towards the front of the room so that we are closer together than further apart. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Very shortly, I will be receiving our welcome marks deliverer, representative from IRENA. Thanks again for your kind attention. Well, dear delegates, if you're still out in the foyer, kindly be advised that you are about to miss out on the welcome remarks of the opening ceremony for the 6th International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and Exhibitions. Kindly do make your way into the conference suite. You are encouraged to please select a seat closer to the front than to the back of the room. If you've just joined us, welcome indeed to day 2 of the 2024 Sadc Sustainable Energy Week. And it's my privilege and pleasure indeed to receive the Director General, International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, Mr. Francesco La Camera, to deliver us the welcome remarks for this opening ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in receiving Mr. Camera to the stage.
Good afternoon. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to join you today at the 6th edition of the International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and Exhibition. We are further pleased to hold it for the first time in Southern Africa, Botswana. I would like to express my gratitude to the government of Botswana for hosting us, and to Sadc, Secretariat and Sadc Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency for their invaluable support in organizing this conference. If I can add a personal note, I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to come back in Botswana. I've tried to have a look to all documents, and I recognized that when I was working in the Ministry for the Environment in Italy, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Botswana government. And this was in Paris, exactly 10 years ago, in the process of negotiating of the Paris Agreement. And I noticed the extraordinary progress that this country has been made in all this year. So thank again to the government of Botswana for giving me the chance to be back also in this room, where we have one of our events in our collaboration. Thank you. IREC stands at ARENA's flagship event, serving as the global platform for advancing the dialogue on off-grid renewable energy solutions. It brings together leaders, policymakers, and innovators to share experiences and best practice on design and implementation of enabling projects, policy, tailored financing schemes, innovative business models, and technology application for off-grid. So why do we do it? First, the Global Development Agenda has underscored the importance of delivering various relevant outcomes, and we are falling short. While there has been progress toward achieving universal access to electricity and clean cooking, not enough is being done to meet the targets. As per 2024 SDG 7 tracking report, 685 million people still lack access to electricity, and 2.1 billion people still rely on polluting fuels and technologies. At the current rate of progress, several million will remain without access by 2030. In Southern Africa alone, data shows that there is still about a 40% electricity access deficit. Even in other parts of the world, such as Latin America and Caribbean, about 16.2 million still lack access to electricity, particularly in remote areas. Secondly, at ARENA, we believe that off-grid must not only cover electricity and clean cooking, but also expand to productive sectors and enhance lives and livelihoods. Around 30% of the world's energy is consumed within agricultural value chain, primarily relying on fossil fuels and contributing significantly to greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, it is further estimated that around 1.1 billion people rely on health facilities without reliable electricity connection. 64% of health facilities in low-income countries lack electricity, affecting the quality of health services. In our pursuit of a greener and more sustainable future for off-grid communities, we need to harness the manifold opportunities through the power of renewable energy sources to gain as much positive impact as possible. Lastly, we grow our body of work on energy access and off-grid remote communities. We need to aim alongside all our members and partners to commit to more meaningful action on the ground. Together, we must intensify our collective efforts through a wide range of collaborative initiatives. I am positive we can gather our resources, mitigate risks, and invest in projects and programs that can empower communities. As part of the 6th edition of IREC, this afternoon and tomorrow, we are pleased to collaborate with 7 esteemed technical partners: African Association for Rural Electrification, Global Off-Grid Lighting Association, International Institute for Environment and Development, the Sadc Foundation, SNV, Sea4All, and the World Research Institute, as well as Alliance for Rural Electrification as an industry partners. Over the course of this conference, we will we will be holding 10 sessions that cover a range of relevant topics, from planning to finance, from socioeconomics to tracking climate adaptation. So, dear friends, renewables are transforming lives by bringing power to remote communities, with mini-grids playing a crucial role in expanding off-grid access. But our mission must go further. Together with our partners, we are exploring innovative solutions, leveraging renewable energy certificates for distributed energy to drive sustainable development. At the same time, we must strengthen the interconnection between energy, health and agriculture, ensuring that renewable energy become a catalyst for broader socioeconomic progress. I hope that all technical discussion at this edition of IREC will strengthen continuous cooperation with your countries and organizations as we move towards translating our aspiration into tangible action. So in close of this introduction, I wish also, if you allow me, to make some personal takeover of the discussion I have heard yesterday and this morning. So I felt that from the intervention from the ministers and others, that there is this need for a better integration among the countries of Sadc. You know, we as ARENA, we have launched, in the occasion of COP28, an alliance for net zero, an alliance of the utilities for net zero. This means that we have today more than 50 companies that are in charge of transmission, distribution of energy that are part of this alliance. Our first gathering has been focusing on the global agenda. Now we wish to move this alliance to more regional focus. So I think I asked my people, in principle, Gurbus Kunul, that will moderate the next session today, to enter in contact with Sadc so we can have the first regional UNESA Alliance for Net Zero, Utility Alliance for Net Zero here in South Africa. There is also another aspect that I wish to say, talking about finance. I have talked about this yesterday. There are still a few countries of SADC region that are not part of the accelerated partnership for renewable energy in Africa. I really encourage you, and as minister that are here, to be part of this alliance that is trying to rewrite the way the international cooperation works. And again, other things that I wish to add before closing, and then, you know, we have been engaging with our energy transition accelerating financing platform in facilitating the matching between projects and funding. And we do this directly and also through investment forum. So I encourage you all to have a look to our webpage in ARENA, or engage with my people that will continue to stay here later in the next days to present project to us. It's very simple, just 2 pages to be completed. And we start to work with the proponent and try to bring the project to a bankability assessment. And what I was discussing with my people, that could be a good occasion to have an investment forum in South Africa in the occasion of the next SADC meeting next year. So I really encourage to enter in contact with Gurbus and try to start to work on the details of this investment forum. So thank you very much for your attention. Grazie. Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, those were the welcome remarks by Mr. Francesco La Camera, Director General of International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA. This is, of course, the opening ceremony of the 6th International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and Exhibitions. Very shortly, you will be hearing from the 3 designated speakers that will be shortly taking the podium as a continuation of the opening ceremony of the 6th International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and Exhibitions. This is a flagship event of the International Renewable Energy Agency, convened every 2 years, offering a global platform for sharing experiences and best practices on various technology, policy, regulatory, and finance aspects of off-grid renewable energy solutions, highlighting its crucial role in the achievement of the climate and sustainable development objectives. The first 4 editions of this event took place in Accra, Ghana 2012, and Manila, Philippines 2014, Nairobi, Kenya 2016, and Singapore 2018. The 5th edition was held virtually in December 2021, and this 6th edition of IOREC takes place here in Gaborone, Botswana, as part of the 2024 Sadc Sustainable Energy Week. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in receiving our first speaker for this official opening ceremony, and that is Honorable Makazo Chikute, Minister of Energy from Zambia.
Good afternoon. We sound to be as if we are not at a very important meeting which addresses our challenges. We must give confidence to the people listening to solutions that are going to come from here. Good afternoon. That sounds better. Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, fellow advocates for the bright future, it is my honor to stand before you today to discuss a topic that lies at the heart of Africa's development, and that is energy. More specifically, the transformative potential of off-grid renewable energy in empowering lives and the livelihood across this vibrant continent. Energy is the lifeblood of development. It powers homes, schools, hospitals, and businesses in different approach. It drives innovation, it creates jobs, it unlocks opportunities, yet for too long, millions of Africans have been left in the dark. There's no way we can reduce poverty. There's no way we can create jobs. There's no way we can live a decent life without reliable, sufficient, affordable electricity. Today, I want to share a light on how off-grid renewable energy is not just a solution, but a catalyst for sustainable development, economic growth, and human dignity. Africa as a continent of immense potential, and this is the potential we have just been talking about, and nobody can dispute that as Africa coming down to a regional bloc, we have the potential in the energy sector. And from this point, that's where we need to start putting our heads together, working as a team, trying to address the challenges that we have already identified to drive the big agenda. Africa is a continent, and it is a home to some of the world's fastest growing economies, a young and dynamic population, abundant natural resources. Yet, despite these advantages, over 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa still lack access to electricity. And this is the assignment that we have as people privileged to save our communities, to save our countries. 600 million people still in darkness. You can imagine, you can just reflect on this point, how many children are being denied the quality education that they are supposed to receive. How many communities that are failing, that are in an awkward position of not having the opportunities of quality health care. This is quite a big number that should drive our agenda. That should put us in a position whereby, as leaders, we need to focus and walk the talk. This energy deficit is not just a statistic. It is a barrier. It's a barrier to progress. Nowhere you can start talking about progress. Nowhere you can start talking about reducing poverty. Nowhere you can start talking about creating jobs with this kind of a barrier. It limits the education. It limits the health care and constrains economic opportunities. The traditional approach to address this challenge, which has been expanding centralized grid infrastructure, has proven challenging. High cost, logistical challenges, and the vast geographical spread of rural communities make grid extension a slow and often expensive solution. This is where off-grid renewable energy steps in as a game changer. Off-grid renewable energy system, solar home systems, mini grids can come in a standalone solution and contribute in transforming energy access in Africa. Off-grid is the only game changer, mainly our rural part of our countries, which are very far from the national grids. If we want to drive economic growth, we need to address this challenge. And the only way to address this challenge, we need to come up with the off-grid energy solution. Very, very important. These technologies are decentralized, are scalable, adaptable to the unique needs of the rural and underserved communities. They are not just bridging the energy gap, they are transforming the lives. Empowering households is one of the steps that we can take for the families to move forward, for the families to start participating in economic activities. A simple solar system can mean a lot and can bring a lot of difference between darkness and the light. Children can be able to study at night. Household can power essential appliances, and families can stay connected through today in this modern world. I'm sure when I was looking around, at times all of us, we are with our phones. We are checking information on our phones. And for those gadgets to work, they need to be charged. And you can only charge when you have access to electricity. Ladies and gentlemen, that is very, very important for the livelihood of our people. This is not just an convenience, but it is about dignity and opportunities. Boosting the livelihoods of grid energy is a catalyst for economic growth. It empowers small businesses, such as those who run barbershop, tailoring, and even our small-scale farmers in terms of irrigation. I'll give you examples that we have gone through in Zambia. Ladies and gentlemen, during our serious problem of drought that hit the country, like I said yesterday, 85% of power generated in Zambia is from hydro. So when we were hit with the drought, our generation went down, resulted in so many hours of load shedding. Now, what was happening? What was happening is that people had no option but to start cutting trees for energy using charcoal, which we are saying we need to live green. We need to change the type of livelihood our people are facing. We need to move to clean energy. In rural areas, especially this servant who is talking before you comes from the rural areas. I have seen where in our healthcare facilities, our nurses using phones at night to deliver the services. Something terrible. You can just imagine that people are being attended by using the light of a phone to attend to the patients. I think these are the things that we can feel we need to address. And also back home, we have said we cannot only depend on the rain-fed agriculture. We need to go into irrigation. Now, how do we irrigate if we don't have this power we are talking about? We need to have reliable power that is going to support economic activities such as irrigation, to produce food for our countries. Food security can only be achieved when we have reliable energy. Also, enhancing healthcare. Reliable energy is critical for health delivery. Solar-powered clinics can refrigerate our vaccines in the rural areas. To me, standing here, I understand these things very, very well. How rural areas can be unlocked if we are to take the off-grid systems. We are able to power medical equipment in our health centers. We are able to provide lighting and also to so many requirements. And this is a saving lives and improving health outcomes across the continent. Driving innovation. Africa is a center of innovation in the off-grid sector. From pay-as-you-go solar models to mobile money integration, African entrepreneurs are leading the way in creating sustainable and inclusive energy solutions. It's all over these systems, and we just need to achieve these innovations. While the potential of off-grid renewable is undeniable, realizing this potential requires concerted actions from government, the private sector, and our development partners. No question about it. If we are to win this assignment that we have given ourselves. Us in government, we need to come up with policies, deliberate policies that will help us to create enabling environment for off-grid energy development. This includes streamlining regulations, reducing import tariffs on renewable energy equipment, and integrating off-grid solutions into national energy plan. As Zambia, we have moved a step forward. Deliberately, when we were hit with this crisis, we said all renewable equipment that are imported in the country are free from tax. Import tax, no, because we wanted to achieve the crisis that we have seen and identified. We also need to scaling up investment. The off-grid sector needs increased investment to reach its full potential. This includes not only public funding, but also private capital. Innovative financing mechanisms, such as green bonds and blended finance, can unlock the resources needed to scale up off-grid projects. Capacity building. Yesterday, someone in the audience raised an issue of capacity building. Indeed, when we are taking this route, we also need to move together with the capacity building. Capacity building, building our local capacity is also very, very important for sustainability of off-grid solutions. This means training technicians, empowering entrepreneurs, and fostering community ownership of energy systems. Very, very important as we are putting these off-grids, as we are moving in our communities. It's important to carry along with our communities. This will result in sustainable systems. As we look to the future, the vision of universal energy access in Africa is within our reach. But achieving this vision requires bold actions and unwavering commitment. No question about it. We need to come up with bold decisions that will drive our agenda. We must, like I said yesterday, champion collaboration. We need to collaborate. No single actor can solve the energy challenge alone. But when we work as a team, when we come together, when we remain focused, as we collaborate, we are able to achieve this agenda. Government, businesses, NGOs, communities, cooperating partners, all of us, we need to come together and drive the progress. Prioritizing inclusivity, very, very important also. Energy solution must be inclusive, reaching the most sidelined and vulnerable populations, including our women and girls, who are always in a very disadvantaged positions, especially where energy is required, especially when we are talking of reducing poverty. Our key drivers are our women. So we need to bring everybody on board. Also, embracing innovation. We must continue to innovate, leverage new technologies, business models to make off-grid energy more affordable, accessible, and impactful. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, energy is more than just lighting homes and industries. It is a fundamental human right. It is fundamental human right and a cornerstone of development. Off-grid renewable energy is not just a stopgap solution. It is a pathway to a better and more equitable future for Africa. As we gather here today, let us recommit ourselves. Let us recommit ourselves to the goals of energy for all. And that is our agenda. And that is our vision. And that is our direction. As a region, we need to drive this agenda for Africa. Before we talk of the entire continent, it starts with our region. As a region, we need to lay a strong foundation for innovation, and this will help our agenda to be achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, we need all of us to harness the power of the sun, wind, and other innovations that are valuable in our countries, in our continent. People to light up homes, power economies, and transform their lives. Together we can, that no one is left in the dark. That is our agenda. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Honorable Makozo Chikote, Minister of Energy from Zambia. This is, of course, the opening ceremony of the 6th International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and Exhibitions. You are encouraged to visit www.sadcenergyweek.org, where you will see various information about this event, including the agenda and speaker profiles. Case in point, our next speaker is the social justice advocate and humanitarian that became a minister. She has spoken about strengthening the anti-corruption framework in the country and has also participated in awareness campaigns, such as joining the Botswana Family Welfare Association in a walk against gender-based violence recently. She's been involved as well in several initiatives aimed at improving governance and social welfare in Botswana. She joins us up next on the podium. Please receive her Assistant Minister for State President in Botswana, Honorable Maipelo Muphuting.
Director of Ceremonies, Miss Giselle, you know I'm going to share something with you in front of everybody. Growing up, Waitse, we used to, in the interest of our international guests, I will speak English. But madam, I grew up listening to you on radio. I used to think, man, who is this woman who has such a beautiful voice? Almost as good as mine, almost. You are a very close second. I honor you and celebrate you. You have been doing this for the longest of times, and I see that you still have it together. Congratulations, continue just serving in this manner. Raise up a generation of young men and women who will serve diligently like how you have. Ke lebogile, Ms. Giselle. Oh, there we go. You know, Honorable Chikode, did I say that right? Honorable Chikode. Yes, there we go, Honorable Chikode. I was listening to you talk about how critical it is for us to continue to empower women and young girls. Like Ms. Giselle rightly pointed out, I am a humanitarian before I am a politician. I always tell people that I did not pursue politics, politics pursued me. And that is because I understood that these positions that God tends to entrust us with, they are merely here so that we are able to get more done in the seats that we occupy. And for many years, I spent using my voice, amplifying the many voices that were already out there, speaking and advocating for the girl child, for women. I still continue to do so. But you know, Honorable, we cannot have a society whereby we are empowering young girls, we are empowering women, and we are leaving the boy child behind. We do not want a society that young girls are empowered, educated, and we are leaving our boy child behind. So much as I continue to advocate for women to be empowered, for young girls, but please, 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 let us use our voices as well to say, let us handhold both boys and girls to be the future leaders of this beautiful continent of ours. Sadc Energy honorable ministers here present, ambassadors, event partners, being Director General Irina, and SACRI Executive Director, esteemed delegates, distinguished guests, media houses, ladies and gentlemen, Director of Ceremonies, I have already greeted you. Good afternoon. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the beautiful, diamond-rich country of Botswana. I cannot help but state that we are honored that Irina has chosen our beautiful country to host this significant event, the first of its kind in Southern Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know, this gathering brings together thought leaders, experts, and stakeholders from all around the world to advance the global renewable energy agenda. I don't know how I feel about reading these statistics, but here we go. In Botswana, electricity access stands at approximately 76%. 76%. Better than a lot of African countries, but there's still much, much room for improvement. And with only 25% of rural communities connected to the grid, moreover, around 66% of the population has access to clean cooking solutions. While significant progress has been made, a substantial gap remains, highlighting the need for continued efforts to ensure universal access to modern energy services. Off-grid renewable energy solutions play a vital role in bridging Botswana's energy access, as we heard the President articulate that so well yesterday. bridging Botswana's energy access gap, especially in remote and undeserved communities. Today's event is particularly relevant as it explores key strategies and innovations to expand energy access and drive sustainable development in the country. Distinguished guests, off-grid or decentralized renewable energy solutions play a fundamental role in enhancing community well-being by providing reliable and affordable energy. They empower, of course, like we heard the Honorable Minister just speak now, they empower local economies, create jobs, and support essential services, critical essential services, such as healthcare, education, thereby driving sustainable development and improving livelihoods. Off-grid renewable energy enables productive uses such as irrigation, agro-processing, and small-scale industries. Such activities, ladies and gentlemen, contribute significantly to economic growth, food security, and poverty reduction in our communities. In Botswana, off-grid solar projects have successfully brought electricity to remote areas, empowering schools, clinics, as well as households. The initiatives have transformed lives by enhancing agriculture, improving livelihoods, and expanding access to quality healthcare and education. With a bold commitment to energy access, Botswana has launched the National Off-Grid Electrification Program. The program is already lighting over 50,000 households through solar solutions. Excellencies, distinguished guests, innovation in energy technologies, equipment, and processes is critical for sustainable development and climate action. By integrating innovative solutions, we can enhance energy efficiency, reduce costs, and improve the reliability of renewable energy systems. Solar-powered water pumping systems are transforming rural areas by providing a sustainable water supply for irrigation and livestock. The innovations, of course, have boosted agricultural productivity and improved the livelihoods of farmers by fostering economic growth and food securities. Much of this as well has contributed significantly to the economy of Israel, I have come to understand. If it can happen in a small Middle Eastern country like that, there's absolutely no reason why the same cannot happen for Botswana, and it will happen. Similarly, another example of innovation is the development of solar-powered cold storage systems for agricultural produce in rural Botswana. The systems use solar energy to power refrigeration units, helping farmers preserve their crops and reduce post-harvest losses. Not only does this innovative solution strengthen food security, ladies and gentlemen, but it increases farmers' incomes and stimulates local economic growth. Distinguished guests, Botswana is steadfast in its commitment to providing energy access and driving socio-economic development. We will continue to prioritize and invest in off-grid renewable energy solutions to uplift our communities, enhance livelihood, and foster sustainable growth. Ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to engaging discussions and meaningful deliberations throughout this conference, confident that the conference will yield valuable insights and outcomes. Let this not be just another conference as usual, another talk shop. Let us take that which we are learning from each other and actually go and implement back in our different localities. Your insights and contributions are invaluable in shaping our collective efforts towards a brighter and more sustainable future. In the end, you know it's very dangerous to give a politician a microphone. They tell you 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes turns into 50, but I promise I'm concluding. At the end, I extend my sincere gratitude to Irina and all the technical partners, speakers, as well as you wonderful participants who have graced our shores, for your dedication and contributions to this important conference. Together, we will achieve a sustainable energy future for Botswana and for the world. I thank you all for your attention. I was about to say pula, but we know that the rains have been relenting, so I'm very, very scared to declare hore pula, but nonetheless I will. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the African minister with a fabulous voice indeed. That was the Assistant Minister for State President here in Botswana, Honorable Maipelo Mophuting. Ladies and gentlemen, let's receive our final minister in this presentation, being the opening ceremony of the 6th International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and Exhibitions, Honorable July G. Moyo, Minister of Energy and Power Development in Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. With two beautiful voices, you are now having a rough voice. It is an honor to be among the distinguished participants at this 6th edition of the International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference. And I follow in the footsteps of my brothers and sisters who have spoken before me, and I associate myself also with the analysis of our continental and regional statistics that have been delivered to you. I want to give an analysis of what happens in one of the countries, Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, the household electricity access stands at 62%, inclusive of 28% from off-grid systems, with the majority of those in the off-grid coming from the rural areas. Limited access exacerbates poverty, hinders economic development, and deepens social inequalities. And this was mostly exemplified during the COVID-19, when most of our schools went online to end up teaching, and the disadvantaged were those in the rural areas. But we have taken a sectoral approach to off-grid initiatives. So let me start with our agriculture. We have concentrated on agriculture because of needing to have climate-proofing our agriculture. And because of that, we have now analyzed all the climate-proofing systems that we can have in agriculture. Zimbabwe is endowed with over 10,000 inland dams, which could be utilized for irrigation contingent upon the availability of electricity. However, less than 1,000 of these dams are currently operational for irrigation, hampering efforts to improve food security and climate resilience. Off-grid renewable energy solutions, particularly solar, are well suited to develop irrigation schemes on this untapped resource. The rural development model, which we call Rural Development 8.0, aims to eradicate all forms of poverty, including food and water poverty, through an integrated approach involving agricultural development, rural industrialization, in order to achieve our Vision 2030. Under this model, the government targets the establishment of 35 village business units by 2025. And we started last year during the drought, and we have created proof of concepts, 400 village business units, where villages are given, are formed into companies, and they operate as companies which develop both their agricultural production as well as value chain, including off-grid energy systems. And these energy systems are essential to realize the remaining units which we want to accelerate, and we are accelerating already this year. The same program seeks to establish 9,600 school business units, SBUs. This is an aim to say every school, primary and secondary, must become a business unit, where the children from primary to secondary school are taught how to grow things for themselves, and to ensure that we enhance nutrition and climate resilience. And this is ongoing, and most of our schools in the rural areas were also electrified, but we were not creating business units which are borehole drilled, and you put solar, and you have at least 2 hectares and above for the schools in order for them to enhance their nutrition. Last year, because of the drought, every school, every primary school was given food at the school, but the nutritional value was still very low. That's why we started these village schools business units, so that they can grow their own pulses, vegetables, and others to supplement what the government was doing in order to make sure that the children remain in school. Post-harvest handling and preservation of agricultural products requires electricity. Solar energy has been employed for drying and establishing cold chains across the country. There is a steady growth in poultry, horticulture, and export flower production in the country. To bolster food security and preservation efforts, there is a pressing need to develop more renewable energy-powered off-grid systems. Farmers should also adopt off-grid solutions for their operations and storage, which could extend also to abattoirs. Last year, we increased our wheat production from 300,000 metric tons in the previous year to almost 600,000 metric tons. Our consumption is around 300,000, but we ended up using this in order to supplement our feeding, where we were feeding 6.2 million households because of that drought. And most of that wheat, which was grown, required electricity, both from the grid, but mostly also from off-grid, particularly in the communal areas. In our tourism, 26% of Zimbabwe is designated as national parks and conservancies. Within these areas, tourism facilities are powered by solar and other renewable off-grid systems. To enhance the sector's competitiveness, areas lacking electrification must adopt off-grid solutions to power their operations. One effective approach is the implementation of energy efficiency practices. And this we have seen if you come to our resort areas, whether in Gonakudzingwa, in Gonarejo areas or Wange areas, or in the Zambezi Valley, you will see many of those lodges and places where you stay are all powered by solar or other renewables. Our local governance, we have adopted a very robust decentralized system of governance. Growth points and rural service centers as well as business centers are numerous points where we need off-grid solar systems because they lack electricity. Off-grid solutions such as mini-grids could provide essential service to these centers and business units. Additionally, there is significant potential for local authorities in other areas such as water pumping, sewage treatment, street lighting, waste-to-energy projects. And by adopting off-grid systems, local authorities can greatly improve their efficiency and service delivery, moving away from reliance on conventional electricity systems. We are already experiencing waste-to-energy that we have developed in Harare, and we are sharing this experience with other Sadc countries. I know delegations that have come here to Botswana, to Madagascar, to Lesotho, and other countries in order for us to share this waste-to-energy, renewable energy systems that we have developed. And we are hoping that our first plant of 22 megawatts, which has cleaned up the sewer system as well as the refuse collection in Harare, can be replicated in other parts of the country. Transport sector. To ensure a continual flow of transportation, Zimbabwe is utilizing solar off-grid systems to power road toll gates, with some of them under development. Furthermore, to mitigate the load on the grid, electricity mobility initiatives must be empowered by green energy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Expanding off-grid systems in rural areas where last-mile delivery is crucial, or will enhance transport access and decrease travel distances involving quality of life. Although the adoption of off-grid energy systems is still low, increased power availability may promote greater acceptance of this technology. And we have partners who are working on this initiative, and we want to make sure that we bring down all the barriers that inhibit this growth. Mining and manufacturing. The government of Zimbabwe is encouraging the establishment of off-grid solar power plants at mining premises, referred to as captive power plants, to alleviate pressure on the power grid. This initiative aims to enhance production, reduce costs of overtime, and ensure a continuous power supply to industries. We have opened 35 megawatts of off-grid solar for some of the companies. Yesterday, our president opened another 150 megawatts, which is supposed to go to 1,200 megawatts by these independent power producers, but captive power plants, because they are using them for their own use and only sell it to the grid when they have access. We promote this because we also think it will come in our power balance, and that power balance must have a mixture of not just the types of how electricity generated by the players who come into our production systems. With 75% of gold produced in Zimbabwe coming from artisanal miners, there is a pressing need for these miners to establish their own power plants, because they are scattered all over in the rural areas. And a lot of them right now are relying on diesel. And we are trying to encourage them, move away from diesel, put your own solar systems, because you can finance it. And diesel is much more expensive, as well as contributing to greenhouse emissions. And we see that these artisanal miners, we used to call them with almost a derogatory name called Makorokoza, but now we realize these are budding small to medium enterprises in the mining sector. This approach would help reduce the burden on the grid, increase production, and minimize downtime. Social sector. Through the Rural Infrastructure Development Agency, RIDA, the government aims to electrify 1.2 million households over the next 4 years, starting this year. The Rural Electrification Fund, which is our rural electrification agency, has a program to electrify all the public institutions, and this year they are starting with 100 public institutions. And our target is to completion of 2,200 200 institutions by 2030. The ultimate goal is to ensure that every rural public institution is electrified. This means all our outpost police stations, all our outpost places where our extension officers in agriculture are stationed, as well as health and schooling, they are all catered for. Biomass utilization. Zimbabwe possesses significant resources in the form of residues from timber processing plants, sugarcane refineries, and agricultural waste. In the sugar industry, bagasse is utilized to produce ethanol, which is blended at 20% with the imported fuels, mainly petrol, with plans to blend diesel at 5%. This practice has alleviated fuel shortages, has reduced import bills, and promoted the utilization, of course, of bagasse. Furthermore, the sugarcane companies have established their own waste-to-energy plants, which have been operating for the past 30 years, but recently the new entrants also have started producing electricity, but this is also for their own use, but with excess going into the grid. There is potential for greater use of residues from other sectors I have already mentioned in the urban areas. Clean cooking. There is a need to expand the use of liquefied petroleum gas throughout Zimbabwe and to increase the adoption of biogas digesters for clean cooking. The country has abundant coal-based methane gas and natural gas that can be harnessed to enhance clean cooking solutions, with gas reserves that have now been confirmed in one of the companies, a 3.9 trillion cubic feet. We think that gas is the way to go. Government is seeking partners to develop both the CBM, and I know that the company Invictus, which is listed on the stock exchange in Australia, which have found this natural gas, is also looking for partners. Other initiatives, Zimbabwe has developed a roadmap for sustainability in electrifying the country's healthcare facilities and agricultural value chain with the support from IRENA, who are here. This initiative positions Zimbabwe to deploy renewables in both agriculture and health services effectively, so cooperation with partners. To promote the scaling off-grid renewables, an enabling environment is needed to support the off-grid, the growth of off-grid renewable energy sector through policies and regulation, financing mechanisms, and the building of expertise in off-grid renewable new technologies. Regional collaboration is essential for scaling decentralized renewable solutions, promoting innovation and entrepreneurship in the off-grid renewable energy sector. This includes supporting startups and small to medium-sized enterprises that are developing innovative off-grid renewable energy solutions and promoting business models that make off-grid renewables accessible and affordable for all. Zimbabwe participated in a program supported by IRENA and through Sadc to build the capacity of entrepreneurs in the renewable energy sector. A study supported by UNDP highlighted the need for viability gap funding to ensure equitable access to modern energy through mini-grids. Demonstrating projects were implemented with support from the British government in partnership with the Rural Electrification Fund, focusing on community solar mini-grids with a green village concept that addresses productivity, productive use, clean cooking, water and sanitation and hygiene, community gardens, and safety through street lighting in some parts of the country and in different districts throughout Zimbabwe. UNDP supported a cumulative capacity of 11 megawatts of solar for health systems ranging from 5 kilowatt hours to 40 kilowatt hours. More than 1,000 health centers are now off-grid solar on off-grid solar systems. Under the Energy Offer Program, UNDP also funded feasibility studies for 5 solar mini-grids for Rural Electrification Fund, aiming to invite private sector bids. Viability gap funding is crucial for these initiatives. Finally, our financing of off-grid. For social services, schools, clinics, rural hospitals. This is largely funded by the government and also by the Rural Electrification Fund, which charges every electricity user 6% in order to develop and with the assistance of partners. B, commercial sector, industries, mines, companies. These off-grid captive power plants are usually funded from the organization's balance sheets and, of course, leveraging on financial institutions, banks, and pension funds, as I mentioned, to finance these commercial, industrial, and other companies. International financial institutions, we have been told, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, OPEC Fund, and others, we hope and we are working so that at least they can start financing some of these renewable for Africa to achieve its objective. It is imperative that off-grid renewable energy projects are designed and implemented in consultation with local communities, ensuring they promote energy access and productive use. These projects have the potential to transform lives and livelihoods, paving the way for universal access to modern energy in Zimbabwe, the Southern African Development Community, and Africa as a whole, and indeed for those countries that have poverty in terms of electricity. I thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Honorable Moyo from Zimbabwe. Honorable Moyo, I will be requesting for you to please remain at the stage, and that is because I will be inviting the other speakers from this opening ceremony to join you on stage for the group photo. That is to say that we'd like to receive back on stage the Director General of IRENA, Mr. Francesco La Camera, who delivered the welcome remarks, to be joined by the ministers in this official opening ceremony. That is Honorable Moyo, Honorable Chikote, and Honorable Muputi. I do believe that the photographers are on standby to capture this moment. As our dignitaries meet on the stage for their photo moment, I wish to remind you that we're continuing with the International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and exhibitions. Up next is the topic Energy for Development, the critical role of off-grid renewables in empowering lives and livelihoods. We will shortly be sharing an introductory video with you that will take us into the meat of the matter, empowering lives and livelihoods. And this session will be moderated by a representative of IRENA. Thank you very much to Mr. La Camera, Honorable Moyo, Honorable Chikote, and Honorable Muputing for the official opening moments of the event that we are in at this moment. Well, let's take a look at the big screen. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your moderator, the Director, Country Engagement and Partnerships at IRENA, Mr. Hobus Renewable.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome you all to the opening panel discussion of IOREC, which will be on energy for development, the critical role of off-grid renewables in empowering lives and livelihoods. Let me start with inviting our distinguished panelists to the podium. Let me start with Ms. Lindwe Ambingu, Principal Secretary of Ministry of Natural Resources of Energy, Eswatini. Mrs. Sarah Malm, Executive Director of Gogla. Mr. Simon O'Connell, CEO of SNV. Mr. Gillian Alexander Uart, CEO of NG Energy Access. Dr. Rebecca Shirley, Deputy Director, WRI Africa. Mr. Thomas Pulenkov, Senior Technical Advisor at Sadc Foundation. And the last but not the least, Mr. James Molenga, Principal Energy Engineer, Head of Renewable Energy Section, Ministry of Energy, Minerals and Energy of Botswana. While our panelists are taking their seats, first of all, many thanks to the introductory remarks provided by distinguished ministers. I think they have provided a very good transition into their section, into this panel discussion, because they highlighted strongly the role of energy for development, for rural development, for broader economic development of the country and prosperity. I think this approach is very dear to IRENA's heart in our work in the context of energy access. That's how and why we have started the initiative Empowering Lives and Livelihoods that you have seen a short video about it. It is very much about promoting renewable-based, decentralized solutions and to energize agricultural and healthcare value chains, looking into those technical viable solutions complemented with tailored financial schemes and as well as associated capacity building at the local level, because these are all local solutions and capacities at the local level, they need to be developed. We have engaged with 13 countries. Most of them are from Sub-Saharan Africa, 11 of them. 3 countries from this region, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. And we have, in fact, very much promoting sustainability of those solutions, looking into different technology options. We are very technology agnostic in that sense. Looking into solar, wind, hydro, bioenergy, but equally on some of the geothermal, direct use of geothermal heat solutions for different applications in the agriculture sector. We'll look into integrating efficiency into those solutions. For instance, in rural health clinics, we do not simply do electrification of clinics, but look at the building design, efficient building design, look at the efficiency of those equipment and appliances, IT solutions. So it's a comprehensive solution and to achieve an efficient approach. Improving productivity is central. Yesterday in my speech, I gave the example of Malawi dairy sector that we have engaged in. The milk production, 50% of milk production goes to waste because there is no sufficient cold chains in place. And that could be definitely improved. And finally, the affordability. I think this is also central to the discussion. I think all ministers, they highlighted the solutions should be affordable. You can have the most innovative, most practical, technical solution without an appropriate means or financial mechanisms to implement them, that will mean not much. Dear panelists, today, I think there was a highlight in the video, 1 billion people, they rely on healthcare facilities which do not have reliable power supply. Today, agriculture sector, agriculture provides livelihoods to around 2.5 billion people around the world, and where we see a lot of unproductive, inefficient applications across. So the challenge is really huge. We should definitely have moved to those transformational solutions rather than the fragmented approach that we see left and right. But how we can achieve this transformational change, transformational impact at the sectoral level, how we can transform those sectors, I think it's the main question that we'll be looking into, and we'll try to capture these different dimensions of achieving it during this discussion. So let me start with the discussion, and let me take my seat first. I would like to start with Ms. Lingwe Ambingo, Principal Secretary at the Ministry in Eswatini. Given this introduction, how do you envisage the role of off-grid renewable energy solutions contributing to Eswatini's socioeconomic development, some of the challenges that they are facing, and how do you try to integrate those solutions into the lives and livelihood space?
Thank you, Hubas, for having me as part of your panel today. I'm really honored. I align myself with the protocol that has already been established. Coming to your question, talking to the role of off-grid renewables in empowering lives and livelihoods, my take would be the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini sees more potential for off-grid systems being deployed to ensure universal access to electricity in line with our target 2030. Whilst our country has a relatively high electrification rate, which currently stands at 88%, there are still some communities which cannot be electrified owing to the topography of the country. They are unreachable. However, our government is already in the process of piloting off-grid systems, such as mini-grids and solar home systems, which will no doubt help improve the standard of living for these communities. These off-grid systems are targeted for the hard-to-reach and remote communities. As a country, we have to do this if we are to reach 100% by the year 2030. It is a fact. We are working towards a moving target, since homesteads are built daily. But our plan is to get as close as possible to the 100%, having considered all other factors. Other pilots that we have include solar water pumping schemes for communities, which help to increase access to clean water at affordable costs. Coming to the health sector, whilst our country can proudly say we are at 100% of health facilities in terms of connection to the grid, we still feel that off-grid technologies may be a solution in areas where electricity supply is not stable, and to relieve our clinics from the high costs of electricity. The government of the Kingdom of Eswatini has recently partnered with UNICEF Eswatini to install solar PV systems in a number of health facilities, both in rural and urban areas, in order to reduce their operational costs. Over and above these cost-saving measures, the solar PV systems will also ensure sustainable supply of electricity to rural clinics, which frequently suffer from power outages. In terms of agriculture, off-grid systems can greatly improve productivity through these technologies such as solar water pumping, either from the river or underground water. These can enable farmers to adequately irrigate their fields for better yields. The government, through funding from the European Union, has just initiated a project called Catalyzing Energy Access and Transition in Eswatini, which is a transformative initiative aimed at boosting Eswatini's energy security and inclusive economic growth, targeting capacity building for smallholder farmers, MSMEs, the women, youth, and other vulnerable groups to be in a position to access renewable energy solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Indwe. Let me continue with government perspectives, and let me turn to James at the end of the line. We have a huge panel today, so we have to be very efficient. James, we have heard from the minister. In urban areas, the access to electricity is largely covered. But when we look at the rural electrification rate, it is still around 25%. So can you please tell us about the vision of the government in addressing this challenge, and what are the efforts on the government side to close the gap?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Gobo. Let me say protocol observed. For a person to undertake a project, there are certain things that are very important, like the objectives, and as to whether also the data is it available. Do we have a baseline and the target? So this is some of the pillars that I regard in the development of a project or a vision of the country. In Botswana, in 2017, we developed, with the assistance of the World Bank, the renewable energy strategy. That's where most of the data is available. So by then, we are seeing that there were 220,000 households that were not connected to electricity. Of this 220,000 households, we said the 145,000 they can be connected through either the mini-grids or off-grid small systems. But with regard to the initiatives by the government, I would say at the apex of our policy that is looking at project development, we have the National Energy Policy that was developed in 2020, and here it provides for energy equity, access, and development of green technologies. So the government has undertaken some initiatives to improve the uptake of solar PV or any renewable energies in remote areas. Some of the initiatives were done by the government, and some are done with the assistance of the partners. The first one that has been done by the government of Botswana was to connect the primary schools in remote areas. The objective being that we wanted, the pupils, the students, to have access to ICT at an early age. So about 44 projects were undertaken with the capacity ranging from 60 kilowatts to 120 kilowatts. And this off-grid mini-grids were installed mainly in primary schools, but of late there's been an extension to government facilities such as the hotels. You see, the original objective was to, for students to have what is it called, introduction to ICT at an early stage. But at the same time, we are connecting the teachers who are in these areas. We are also even connecting the classrooms, which means even in the evenings, the students can read. The other projects are the water energy, food nexus projects that we undertaken with the support of the European Union. There are two projects that were undertaken. They mainly look at energy production, production of water using water pumping, and then in the end we have food. That's why it's called the water energy food nexus project. So they were done in the Ngamiland, and one of the projects is in Kwining district. And then we have another project that we are doing with the United Nations Development Program, which is on the biogas. It is also targeting rural settlements. And then the objective here was to provide to provide heating, mainly for water heating, because especially during the cold times, in the morning we need hot water, for bathing. So it was mainly provided to do that, and also to provide lighting. So far, these are the projects that we have done as the government of Botswana. And then we are currently working with the World Bank to look at the Access project, which is looking at whether the information that we had in 2020, is it in 2017, whether it's still there. Or like one of the speakers has said, if we don't move very faster, it will be like we are sort of targeting a moving target. So in terms of the benefits, like I said, is mainly heating, refrigeration, and lighting for small businesses. And then we have reductions in emissions. And if people are using like solar for lighting, especially in schools and remote communities, there's a reduction in deforestation. And then at the same time, if you have solar PV in remote areas, it means women and children won't go long distance in fetching firewood. You see, most of the energy that is used in some of these communities, it will be from lantern, candles, and some of the generation will be from diesel, which is also polluting the environment. So apart from that, you heard from our DPS yesterday that for remote areas, the government plans to build 6 mini-grids as pilot projects. But maybe the challenge would be here, if you build it in areas that are remote, would people be able to connect? But at the same time, we also have the challenges with the uptake of this off-grid one of them being the upfront cost. Though internationally the prices have gone down for solar PV, they have gone down. For affordability in Botswana, people are not able to access it. But also that at the moment we don't have subsidies. The other challenge that we have will be the capacity as to whether the people that are employed to install this off-grid solar systems, whether they are qualified or not. And then for those installers for solar PV, at the moment, there is no regulation for the installers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. We have a very balanced lineup of speakers today, representing governments, industry, as well as development partners. Though we are kind of doing so-so in terms of gender balance. But I will turn to now to Sarah, who is representing GOGLA, which is a global association of off-grid solar energy industry, and representing over 200 companies in that space. And Sarah, you heard the ministers, you heard the representatives of Eswatini and Botswana. How do you integrate lives and livelihoods angle into your work? And what is the angle from the private sector point of view?
Thank you. And please, all protocols observed. At GOGLA, we work with companies to scale and reach people with affordable, high-quality off-grid products and services. And I want to underscore the word quality, because quality and standards is a very important part of this discussion, and that in order to transform lives and livelihoods, we have to make sure that the products that we sell and deploy into homes, into communities, into businesses are verified and are of high quality. So that's one important thing that we do to make sure that we are delivering these products and services to communities, that we make sure that they work and that they're safe. And another thing is data. Data is very essential. And at GOGLA, along with the World Bank and with many, many partners who are here today, we do bring together the Market Trends Report annually, which is the state of the off-grid sector. And this is a really important resource, particularly for investors, but also for companies. Now, in order to reach and to scale off-grid renewables, there are a number of stakeholders, but there are two very important ones. One are national governments, and the other are the private sector companies. And we have to recognize that private sector companies are at the front lines of delivering. So when we look at energy access and we look at the transforming lives, a couple of things. One thing is that household level access matters. There's a lot of discussion around tiers, what level of access people need. But the biggest transformation really comes from having no energy access to having first-time energy access. And that includes access to a phone. And hopefully, in coupling with mobile technology, you have access to mobile banking and to other services. And that's where businesses start. That's where big changes happen. But our ministers today really outlined the impact on the quality of life improvements that energy access can provide. And just in one other point, I was in Dar es Salaam at the Africa Energy Summit, and I'm going to maybe say to the Minister Chakotay of Zambia, I wish you had delivered those remarks at the Energy Compact, because in those compacts, about 50% of energy access is going to need to be delivered through distributed renewable energy. And I would say it was about 5% of the discussion. So we at GOGLA are very committed to making sure that off-grid solar is at the top of the agenda with national governments and in the international community. And just one final point, we invite the partnership with national governments to use us as a resource to connect with private sector companies to strengthen that partnership to deliver.
Thank you very much. Very interesting point. Let me turn to Simon. Simon, SNV has been operating in this space for a long time, almost 60 years, I believe. And with working in Asia as well as in Africa extensively. And you have developed extensive knowledge and experience over this period. And especially given this shrinking financial landscape for development-based organizations, how do we keep innovating to reach the underserved? And what is the approach that SNV has taken up to address this?
Yep, super, Gobas. So thank you very much, distinguished guests, ministers. It's a pleasure to be here. It's quite a hot room. We're behind on time. I probably got even less than the 3 minutes that I was already allocated. I'm going to do my best to inject some energy perhaps into the conversation. One, by reminding us what's written on the wall over there. The framing of the week here is accelerating, right? And so I was, and my wonderful team at SNV, we're a global development partner, yes, working in about 25 countries around the world, and have been doing this kind of work for almost 60 years. But I'm not really here to speak about SNV. And I've been reflecting in Lindiwe when I knew I was going to be on the panel with you, and Nijabula Kubalapa. I'm very happy to be here. Njani Sisi, Sanibonani, Begonani, for those who speak a bit of Siswati from 25 years ago when I lived in the beautiful kingdom of Eswatini. And my reflection is this: since those 25 years, we had a period where some of you may know or remember Mukhtar Kent talking about a golden triangle of collaboration, and Sarah, you just mentioned private sector and governments, but of course development agencies, foundations, non-profits, civil society, local NGOs, and there was a lot of momentum around that global triangle. Then there was a man some of you may know, Michael Porter at Harvard, who came up with the shared value framing a little bit later, how you go beyond corporate social responsibility to different kind of partnership constructs with and between private sector groups. Then there was a wonderful leader of Unilever, leading with purpose, companies moving beyond more traditional profit metrics to others. And then, of course, political leaders, first and foremost in this part of the world, the late, great Nelson Mandela, and of course also with the World Economic Forum that focused on multi-stakeholder capitalist models. But my concern now is, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving absolutely into an era of hyper competition, hyper fragmentation, but hyper competition. And I feel we're somewhat sort of sleepwalking into that. Some of you, many of you perhaps, will be following the dismantling of US aid. Many of you will be seeing the cuts in official development assistance. And so this is absolutely not an era to elevate competition between us. This is an era to enable greater, better forms of collaboration. And in our little way as SNV, we've got one or two quite nice examples of that. We have a partnership called the Dutch Fund for Climate and Development with the Development Finance Institution from the Netherlands, FMO, where we're enabling investments of ticket sizes between 10 and 15 million euro into things like horticultural preservation in Kenya, in a country which, into a company that's come up with a solar cooling system for preservation of horticultural produce, a country where 50% of that produce doesn't make it to market. We were one of the early adopters of results-based financing mechanisms, and we got some quite nice toolkits from not far away in Tanzania, vulnerability assessment or access index, enabling us and others to better understand markets and then incentivize private sector through different payment structures to reach out into more peripheral parts of those countries. And Minister Kikote from just over the border here as well, you were talking about nexus approaches, as indeed was Francesco earlier. So we are doing more around those sort of nexus areas around regenerative agriculture and productive use of renewable energy, be it solar irrigation, solar cooling, or biogas and bioslurries. So there are some good things happening, but where we're failing, frankly, we're not doing enough, is on what we call the impact capital continuum. We have many, many catalytic grant mechanisms in place, catalytic financing. We have some nice big ticket collaborations with the DFIs or others, but we have too many grant entrepreneurs going from one grant from an SMV to another grant to another development agency, and we're failing with the graduation. So my kind of plea here is we desperately need to do better to share all those private sector partnerships we have, all that technical assistance provisioning we've been underway with, all that catalytic grant monies going in, which is now so desperately squeezed and needed in those more fragile contexts. And we need to better share with one another some of the RBF mechanisms, some of the catalytic grant financing, so that it can graduate through to concessional forms of financing and then crowding in or private sector. So information sharing and deeper collaboration around an impact capital continuum. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Let me turn to Thomas. And taking the point that Simon made about it's the time for teaming up, partnering, not competing. And Sadc Foundation has been working in India extensively in the off-grid space, providing off-grid solutions in different parts of the country, especially for productive use. Can you tell us about this, your experience, and how this has evolved over time? Was it a quick win, or it was a kind of slow cook process? And how partnerships matter within that context?
Thank you, Gurbus. Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to be here. And over the last couple of days, I was listening to various speakers speak about the issues that they have, the challenges that they have, whether it is partnerships, whether it is quality of products that my colleague just spoke about. I think our problems are all the same. We could be anywhere we could be having this conference anywhere in the world, and we would be discussing almost the same topics. But having said that, and going back to Gurbus's question of, is it a slow process? Is it a slow burn? Or is it is there a chance of a quick win? I think for any development process, whether it is, energy, whether it is, improving livelihoods, whether it is, any development process at all, we have to take the beneficiary, the end beneficiary in hand, and very often that's a slow process. We'll have to, build awareness among the people. We will have to build trust among the people. We will have to overcome the, initial cost challenges that are there in implementing it. We'll have to find, if you're talking of, DRE for lives and livelihoods, we'll have to find appropriate technologies. And all these are further compounded by the policy challenges that we have, the regulatory, frameworks that keep shifting on a regular basis. So it's not an easy job. So obviously, it's a slow process. It's a slow burn process. But having said that, if I can just tell you a little bit about Sadc Foundation, in addition to what Gurbus said, we try to create ecosystems that can actually promote the use of DRE for development activities. Some of the work that we do is, working with partners, different types of partners, whether it is financial institutions, and the areas that we work on as what we call for ecosystem building is innovation, financing, policy, then we have partnerships for forward and backward linkages, and I forget what the last one is, but anyway. So there are 5 pillars that we work on basically, and of these pillars, I think what we basically do in a market to ensure that we can move from a slow process to a quick win is to ensure that the ecosystem exists. So where ecosystems have existed or are existing, it's far more easier to push in, DRE for lives and livelihoods rather than in other places. Let me just give you an example. We are doing a program in India for 25,000 health centers to be powered in 4 years using solar power, funded by the IKEA Foundation and other development partners. And in the first year of our process of the project, which was 2 years back, we did 1,000 systems in 1 year. And in geographies where we had already worked on. But simultaneously, what we did in year 1 is, along with working on these different geographies, we also worked on building ecosystems in new geographies. So year 2, which was last year, we were able to do around 3,000 systems, growing from 1,000 to 3,000. This year, we are planning to do 10,000 systems in the same geographies because the ecosystem is in place. The suppliers are in place. The O&M, vendors are in place. The financing is in place. The health workers have been trained. So everything is in place. And the next year, we will do 12,000, overachieving on the 25,000 numbers that we have. So, I'm using this example to basically say that if we can spend the initial time in building that ecosystem, in building that base that is required for fast growth, I think the fast growth can be very easily achieved. And partnerships, I think Sadc Foundation very strongly believes in partnerships across all levels. We work with local partners, local civil society to be able to, get them because they've got the reach. We need the financing institutions, so we work on capacity building, trainings with financial institutions so that the capacity is built among them to be able to finance solar systems. We work with entrepreneurs and businesses to ensure that they are capacitated to be able to sell, including incubation programs for clean energy and technology. We work with organizations across the board, including organizations like IRENA, whom we look forward to give us more contacts, wherein we can take the lessons that we've learned from what we've done in India to various geographies across the world.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Let me turn to Gillian. But before that, after the first round, we will have an opportunity for questions or comments from the audience. So please gear up. After the first round, you will have the opportunity. Gillian, as energy access, obviously you're operating in very much on the off-grid space also, and advancing solutions for in Africa. But how do you position yourself also in terms of providing socioeconomic impact of what you are delivering in the countries you work with?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. All protocol observed. Thank you very much for hosting us as a panel, quite diverse. Yes, first of all, we do believe in off-grid. So NG Energy Access is 100% focusing on on-grid. The best example I can give is just to piggyback on the Honorable Minister of Energy in Zambia, Mr. Chikote, because we were on the 14th of November in Chataika to inaugurate a mini-grid. This village has been created in 1940s. They never saw electricity before 2024. We have been there, we look what it creates. The pupils at the school were speaking, although they were speaking local languages, I could get the strength of their words, and I got a translation. It was moving. Then they spoke English. They speak a better English than I do. They selected the words that make your soul vibrating. And that's what they said electricity is bringing to them. After electricity, they would like to have water. Water sufficient, clean, in order to grow. So the fact is that a mini-grid is not only providing the minimum standard for any human being, it's also transforming the life of those people. As mentioned, Zambia is going through an energy crisis. Living in Lusaka is less good than living in Chataika today, because we are providing electricity round the clock, which is not the case in the capital city, because it's a decentralized, fully supported solar and battery solution. The time that the national grid and the distribution network would get there, I'm sure that the government of Zambia will have solved the problem of the energy scarcity today. So that's what, for me, off-grid means. That's at the top of the solution that we provide, and today we have impacted 15.5 million individuals. It looks good when you mention 15 million, but it's very little. We are talking about more than 680, and I'm quite concerned with what is happening around the world, that those figures will continue to grow instead of reducing. So when you look at the smaller entry point product, which we were discussing and Sarah was mentioning for Gogla, the quality is important. I have another story. When I was taking my position in 2020, so traveling to Africa in 2021 with 2 masks to cover from COVID, I met with a woman, mother of 2, a girl and a boy. And it's a real story. And I was trying to understand the impact of our product, qualitative one. She said, "You changed my life." Because before having light, I was using candle. When I was using candle for the same price of 1 day of light with your product, I had to choose between my boy and my girl on who will study tonight. The problem as well, the social pressure was to give more a priority to the boy than the girl. From a pure story perspective, the girl was smarter and had better chances to grow faster. This is also a choice. Then she did not have to do that choice anymore, because any product we have at the bottom of our offering is 2 lamps. So each of the kids had 1 lamp to study every night. That's what off-grid is bringing today. Now, if we look at growing the solutions, if you provide AC-driven product, then you can plug any appliance that will sustain any economical growth. A carpenter, a welder. When we were in Chataika, which is the same at Chitandika, in the same region in Zambia, there is a hair salon, there is a bar, there is a convenience store, there is cool drinks, there is a miller, a carpenter, a welder, a compressor to just solve your problem with your tires if you have a car. So that's what it means. How can we do that? By collaborating. We need to collaborate with many different stakeholders. The vision of the President of Zambia is 1,000 mini-grid. We have a project which is supported by the EU. We have a strong company that helps us to construct them, and we manage them. Because we are present in 9 countries, we can bring best practices and also leapfrog pitfalls in which we fell in some of the other countries. That's the way I think that off-grid can accelerate, because that was your question, in order to reach SDG 7 and to make it a success and not a procrastination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me turn to Rebecca. Rebecca, can you please tell us about WLRI's tools and mechanisms to promote deployment of off-grid solutions, especially in terms of healthcare electrification and also deployment in the agriculture sector?
Thank you so much for having WRI here at this event. Really a pleasure to be here from Nairobi, Kenya, and thank you for that question. At WRI Africa, we have been doing our part to try and prove out the thesis that access to complete, reliable, high quality, and free energy data and information can help us solve a lot of the challenges that the panelists are talking about on the stage today in terms of delivering universal energy access. I think there's no need to explain the challenge side of this equation. probably everyone in this room who is an energy stakeholder has dealt with or is dealing with the challenges of lack of data for decision making on the continent. In response to this data need, over the last couple of years, WRI has collaborated with key stakeholders and partners in local academia across the continent to develop an integrated, data-driven, integrated approach to delivering universal energy access. We call this the Energy Access Explorer. Many of you in the room might be users of the Explorer, but for those who may not be familiar, I'll say a little bit about it. It's the first completely open source, online and interactive geospatial platform that enables clean energy entrepreneurs, energy planners, donors, development-oriented institutions, et cetera, to identify high-priority areas for energy access interventions. How does it work? Well, we use the highest resolution spatial data on energy resources, on demographics, but as well as socioeconomic activities, both latent, meaning potential, and current in a given geography, whether those be education, healthcare, agro-processing, on-farm, off-farm activities, etc. We combine that with information about infrastructure, environment, think about your protected areas and other land use cover types, and combine that with granular analytics for multi-criteria decision analysis, effectively to be able to nuance a mapping of energy demand and energy supply. Effectively, in other words, EAE functions as a dynamic information system and a data repository that reduces the software engineering and data transaction costs for the users. So this is a really customizable way to do energy planning that takes away completely the need for your planners to be GIS experts. That is no longer the case. So how has it been used so far? Well, EAE is now completely customized for many African countries, including Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia in East Africa, including Nigeria and Sierra Leone in West Africa, and here in Sadc, Zambia and Tanzania. It's completely customized for these countries. And so governments across these countries now leverage EAE as their planning tool of choice at the national and in particular at the sub-national level for energy planning. Why is that important? Well, thanks to this open source nature of the tool, it's actually a very scalable solution. So we're bringing on board more and more countries year by year by year, more and more users year by year by year. We are now at 30,000 users across well over 100 countries. So even individuals where the tool is not yet customized for that country are leveraging the tool. Let me just give you maybe one example or two of how it's actually been used. And in Kenya, we've used it at the sub-national level because in Kenya, basically the National Integrated Energy Plan is comprised of sub-national plans from our 47 counties that aggregate up to the national. So we've been working with local counties like Makueni, Narok, and Kitui to leverage the tool to build county energy plans. What's exciting for me personally is that once you've built a county energy plan, leveraging that same tool, we're then able to turn it into that plan into an investment prospectus, meaning a targeted list of specific projects at the 100 kilowatt and downwards or upwards level, specific projects in your county that are investment ready. And so here we're talking about being able to say in a county like Makueni, here is the specific area or specific project for dairy processing or fruit drying or cold chain. Here are the 10 specific areas where we can do cold chain. So that level of specificity has been instrumental to counties. We've actually identified over $150 million of investment opportunity on off-grid energy in this county that I'm talking about, Makueni, and have now launched a number of investor missions to Makueni. In fact, we've done 4 so far in the past 2 years. This has transformed the relationship between counties and international and domestic investor communities. And before, that relationship was very, very thin, to say the least. So that's the kind of thing that the tool is able to do. We've done similarly in Ethiopia, Zambia, who is here today. The ministry has leveraged EAE to build out the Zambian health electrification plan. And so for us, why I'm so thankful that you've given us the opportunity to talk about this tool is because we're basically trying to demonstrate how open open access data can really be a foundation for delivering universal energy access. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'll stop there, but just to say that we're really excited about looking for potential partners in the Sadc region and bringing other countries on board to leverage this completely free open access tool for delivering universal energy access. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Now it is time for you, the audience. If you have any questions, any contribute to the discussion, any perspective from your country or organization's point of view? No? All right, we have one question there. If you can introduce yourself and to whom you're asking the question, if it is a question.
Hello, sorry, my microphone is working now. So my name is Carlos, I work with Gogla, and my question is to Mr. and Honorable James and also your Honorable Linwe. We've been speaking about the power of collaboration and partnerships. In a couple of occasions, you've been speaking, and also the rest of the panelists, about solar water pumps and cooling, etc. But there is one partnership that hasn't come up, and this is how do you collaborate with your peers at the Ministries of Agriculture, Water and Environment, and maybe you can tell us what are the challenges that you have currently to come up with a joint collaboration at the ministry level, or maybe that doesn't exist at all, so maybe you can talk a bit about, how do you collaborate with other ministries, or, yeah, thanks.
You want to take it? In terms of collaboration with other line ministries, in terms of agriculture, health, or otherwise?
Thank you for that questions. In terms of collaboration, we as a ministry are trying to identify all the key stakeholders to come up with one major project for government, including all actors in this field. We will be having a session probably sometime next week, convened by the Minister of Natural Resources and Energy to try and look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a very good question, because I remember in few cases in our engagement that it took months to have Energy Ministry and the Agriculture Ministry around the same table and to have start a conversation. James, do you have anything to add?
Of course, we have the line ministries that we normally work with, like Minister of Agriculture and Ministry responsible for environment. Normally, if maybe we are the ones who are making a proposal, I'll give an example. Like we have a project with the European Union that is looking at technical assistance. Is a program. Within the program, there are a lot of projects inside, such as development of the feasibility study on hydrogen, and then we have energy efficiency. We normally look at institutions that are responsible for this maybe activities. And in some instances, with the, like with the Aspire project, there is a component on standards, and we have been involved in Botswana Bureau of Standards. And then if there are components like on grid, smart grids, we have to, talk to the utility, the Botswana Power Corporation. We normally engage sister institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the panel wants to come in on this point? Simon, please go ahead.
Yeah, maybe, thank you, Carlos, for the question. Maybe, obviously, I'm not representing government here, so if I may, I think what I possibly failed to do when I spoke just now is to highlight the scale of disruption that I think we're really entering into now. So the old kind of model was your ODA, your official development assistance money, it comes in, mostly grant money, goes to development organizations such as SNV. SNV forms collaborations, albeit forms some of the more innovative types of collaborations, working with private sector, of course, with governmental partners, then explores different kind of instruments that could be set up, be it the catalytic grants, be it RBF, be it something different. That's been a model which we've seen quite a lot of success around. But we all know the hundreds of millions of people who are still lacking access. And I think, Carlos, what's likely to need to happen is not only ministries within governments need to collaborate differently across ministerial levels, but need to recognize that there's now a real need for a different form of collaboration with those development agencies such as SNV, where the model is not going to be ODA, grant money, call it free money or whatever you want, comes in through SNV, but it comes in to government. Government looks for organizations who can add value in furtherance of their priorities, be it development agencies, be it private sector, and then the payment model is structured in that way. And so, of course, for a development organization such as SNV, what we have to do, the onus is on us to be able to articulate our value proposition, our role, and particularly the price that's worth paying for the services that we're delivering, and we're convinced. Example, Mozambique, the Brillo program, some of you will know, is now 3 million people having access to cleaner cooking, solar household systems, and increasing into the mini-grid space. The economic gains from that are incredibly well metriced, and we need to frame those metrics in a way so that the overall pricing can work for governments as well.
Thank you, Simon. Thomas, I want to also turn to you. Who is taking the lead in India in promoting these solutions for healthcare and agriculture? Is it the Health Ministry, Agriculture Ministry, or the Energy Ministry?
Thanks, Gurbas. Before when the question was asked, there was a panel on which our CEO, Harish, was once sitting, and he said, it was a panel in India, and he was asked, can you tell us one thing that can, help renewable energy succeed in India? And he said, scrap the Ministry of Renewable Energy. Now, Harish is very controversial. But he went on to add, he says, the day we scrap the Ministry of Renewable Energy and add a Minister of Renewable Energy in every single ministry in this country, then renewable energy will take place. So what he was talking about is the fact that there was a need for convergence, and unless convergence happens, it's not going to be possible. Another thing that happened very recently in India was that the Prime Minister decided that there was too much of funding going into different programs for different activities that could actually be converged into one single program. And he gave a deadline to all the ministries to come up with a convergence plan for policy. Every ministry was supposed to suggest 2 policies that could be converged with policies of other ministries. The Ministry of Renewable Energy was also given this task, and the Ministry of Renewable Energy requested Sadc Foundation if we could identify some programs that could have this convergence. So we worked with the Ministry of Renewable Energy with 8 or 9 other line ministries to go through their policies, understand what were the programs that could have convergence, and then we worked on specific programs and then realized there was so much of potential to be able to tap into different programs for the Ministry of Renewable Energy itself. So as what we did as a foundation is we immediately went back to all our partners in the field and said, look, these are the 10 or 12 schemes that you can tap into where clean energy can be introduced. And today, I'm happy to say that there was a program for the physically handicapped where there was subsidy available for them. So we introduced solar-powered livelihoods for the physically handicapped. There was a program in which there was money for micro food processing enterprises, which is called the PMFE fund. In that particular program, we were able to incorporate renewable energy into it. And the value add that study actually gave us is fantastic. So going back to what Carlos's question was, which basically asked, can ministries work together? If ministries can work together, there's a big win-win for, I think, across both ministries. The Ministry of Energy as well as the Ministry of Agriculture or Water or whichever is the division. And our health program is a typical example of that, where energy, health, and even the water ministry came together to be able to identify sites where we could actually put up the systems.
Thank you, Thomas. All right, we have one more question in the corner, another there. Unfortunately, we won't be able to have a second round, but I will give the opportunity to panelists to wrap up later.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Isaiah Mulenga. I'm a consultant. And I just want to follow up with Angie. Very inspiring story about the work you're doing in Zambia. My question is trying to understand financing models or mechanisms that Angie has been using, especially that you spoke very well about integrating productive use of energy in rural areas. And further, maybe you can also share if you've noticed any gaps around financing PUE from your experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I think I will also link it to the collaboration and the standardization. There are, according to Google, 54 or 57 countries in Africa. There are most probably as many regulations to develop off-grid infrastructure. This does not really help in order to accelerate. I was, in my previous professional life, developing projects either in Asia or in the Gulf. The reason where it went faster, even in the different countries, is because they standardized the project documents. And because the project documents were standardized, the time that you have to spend with external lawyer to validate the documents to be able to be bankable is very limited. It's a gain of time, it's a gain of money, so in the end, it's a win-win-win. So to come back to your example, at first, infrastructure projects like mini-grid were tendered in very small number and big capacity. It failed for two reasons. The first one is that the risk is too concentrated on a few number of projects. Second, because the projects are oversized compared to the potential increase of the demand of electricity, the return on the project is negative, so you enter into a vicious circle that makes the project definitely not bankable. One example, and I'm sorry, but it will most probably please the Honorable Minister in Zambia, is the project that we have with the EU in Zambia. They have tendered 60 mini-grid in one project. This allows to have economy of scales in terms of moving the people that will construct those mini-grid, but it also reached a certain level of investment that becomes interesting for the commercial banks. It's not that easy to convince a bank to do a project finance. So project finance is only financing on the performance of the project, looking at all the data and the assumptions of your business plan. Based on that, the bank is comfortable to lend you money because they will get the money back. The only recourse that the bank has is to take over the project from you. Nothing else, no guarantee. So it's totally possible to finance off-grid project if you are in a certain framework. Bankable documentation, size of the project must be big enough to interest the commercial bank, and the part of the subsidies that are provided on those projects make the difference between equity, debt, and subsidy.
Thank you. Let's move to the next question. There was another in the middle.
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Pietres Johannes from Namibia. My question goes to James. For for mini-grid that are funded by government, I just wanted to understand what ownership model is deployed to ensure that this mini-grid continue to sustainably supply electricity to those customers. Secondly, for grant-funded mini-grids, I just wanted to understand how is the price determined to those end consumers, or are they getting electricity for free? So I just wanted to get that clarification on grant-funded projects.
Okay, I would say at the moment, this project implemented through the utility, which is Botswana Power Corporation. So they have run an expression of interest, which means after that they will maybe issue an ITT. At the moment, with some of the previous initiatives, the model that was used was the government approach. We are not using the joint venture because the joint venture was recommended from the renewable energy strategy, but the realization is that it's very expensive. But I believe after the submission of the expression of interest, the utility will make an assessment or evaluate which method they're going to use. But at the moment, most of the projects that we undertake, the government implemented, we don't have projects that are funded, especially at the mini-grids, funded by maybe the donor agencies. But we remain hopeful that maybe in future, we will require the grant from these international institutions, because if you look at the rooftop solar, as mentioned earlier on, the uptake from domestic is very low because the upfront cost is high. And then we feel that even for the mini-grids, normally in countries like Kenya, where there's economics of scale, it's easier to do the joint venture or give a project to the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are almost at the end of our panel, but before we close, I want to give an opportunity to our panelists, 1 minute each, on this question. If you look at the big picture, and while we're talking about this transformational change, whatever we have been doing so far has not been enough. That's clear. So we have to do something else. I mean, we are very hopeful with Mission 300 and hope that it succeeds. But I want to hear from you about one thing. There are many things I know, but from your point of view, the most important thing that needs to be fixed or that needs to be changed or that needs to be scaled up to be able to make this change. I was in, some of you also, in the failures conference that Sadc organized. So basically we spoke about the failures, where we failed, and how we can learn lessons from those failures to be able to design more impactful interventions. Taking that also into consideration, where should we start, or where should we focus on first to be able to fix it? Sarah.
Okay, I'm going to go through my quick hit list because I think these are the top items. One is in financing. We need more financing in local currency. That's going to be essential for private sector companies to be able to get the investment that they needed. The next is around VAT and import duties, and I think the point around these things are impossible to understand and unevenly applied and aren't supporting an enabling environment for private sector to succeed. Another is in integrated energy planning. We've got to make sure that off-grid and DRE more broadly is reflected in an integrated energy plan. I think on risk allocation, that national governments, private sectors, and all stakeholders need to consider risk allocation. And as I mentioned earlier, private sector companies are taking a lot of the risk in delivering off-grid solar solutions. And then to my final point, and to what Jillian said earlier, is that all access matters. Household access matters. Households are not a business in most cases. They are about transforming the quality of life. So it's not an either or, it's a yes and. Yes in tier 1, yes in tier 2, yes off-grid solar, yes and mini-grid, yes. So let's support all technologies where they can be best applied.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to Rebecca because Rebecca also didn't speak in the second.
Thank you for that. Really great question. I think I'll start from the point of view of the fact that Africa is perhaps the only continent in the world where delivering what is effectively a basic human right, electricity access, and energy access more broadly, is an exercise that has to be profitable. This doesn't exist anywhere else. And so this is why many of our conversations at events like this come down to the investment and financing challenge. My suggestion of a way to rapidly address that challenge, from what we've been seeing in counties, like I mentioned, where we've been able to demonstrate these investment prospectuses, is taking a holistic, full value chain approach. So rather than trying to figure out how do I make an individual mini-grid or an individual plant bankable, look, as Sarah was just saying, from the household, to the community, to the productive uses of energy, all the way through to the off-takers, and invest in the entire pipeline. If we do that, that's going to be what helps us scale up the investment for energy access.
Thank you. Simon?
Yeah, thank you, Guba. So I'm going to try two, if I may. Somebody asked me the other day, do I know of any households that have gone from candles or kerosene to solar, right? And then gone back to candles and kerosene? Does anyone here in the audience, can anyone think of households that's gone back on that journey? Simply does not exist. The economics of it, the models show that it's completely economically viable. You could go further, it's a no-brainer. So my one point, Gubas, is we've got to bring down the cost of borrowing. We simply have to be recognized as an SNV. If we've worked with dozens of SMEs for years on technical assistance provisioning and provision of catalytic or otherwise forms of grant financing, a DFI or a private sector investor has to recognize that, and that has to contribute to a reduction in the cost of borrowing. We absolutely have to figure that out. The second thing is, we, all of us, again including SMV, need to do a better job in being clear on what our role is. And Mission 300 that so many of us are hearing about or who are in discussions around is a great example. Of course we want the big vision of scale. Of course we want the collaborations across the banks, philanthropy, and most importantly, governments. But we also need to make those bridges between the hyper-local and the mega-global. Call it global or call it what you want, but we have to be clear around the different roles of our different organizations within mechanisms such as Mission 300 or others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gillian?
Yes, I think everything has been said, but there are still many other things that we could improve. The first one I would emphasize is there is no technology that fits all. So when we are talking about household or when we are talking about businesses, the projects at the moment are too much segmented and they are too technology prescriptive. We should look at the end goal. What do we want to do? What do we try to achieve? First. The second is about the tariff. At some point, the real test is the affordability of what we propose. So when there is limited tariff for something which is done totally in a remote area. The substitute would be even to bring that candle in the middle of nowhere. How much does it cost to bring a candle in the middle of nowhere? The tariff for most of the countries in cities is subsidized, but how do we reflect that in a rural area? At some point, if there is a disconnect between what can be charged with what needs to be invested, then the acceleration will go backward. We decelerate. So this discussion must happen, because if there is no cost-reflective mechanism, then it does not fly. And if it does not fly, we fail in SDG 7, and we will see the number increasing and not decreasing. So that's the 2 points.
Thank you very much. Quickly, Thomas. 1 minute, please.
Yeah, I think it's unfair when you give them 5 points went away by Sarah, another two each from them. So I'm now left with hardly anything. But I think there was one thing that was missed by all of them. It was the potential for South-South learning, taking learnings from other countries, other areas, and transfer of knowledge that could actually be done, so that there's a lot of things that were learned by other countries, mistakes that are not repeated, and learnings that were there that can be easily replicated without having to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you very much. Lingwe.
Thank you. I'll be brief. What I can say is, as we fast-track the off-grid solutions as a region, we need to also deliberately work on policies for supporting the off-grid solutions, and also develop policies for proper disposals of this renewable energy waste in order to protect our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. James?
From my side, my concern will be on planning. Like when we plan, you should have the right information to guide you. For off-grid, we have off-grid mini-grids or off-grid smaller systems. So we really need data if we want to, if we really want to plan properly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Please join me thanking to all panelists for their great interventions. Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of the panel. Thank you very much for your attention and also for your contributions, questions. Thank you.
Well, that applause also includes an appreciation to you, our dear moderator, Hobus Hunul, and I hope I did do a fair chance at pronouncing your name. You can see me after class to give me feedback. Director, Country Engagement and Partnerships at IRENA. They're standing by for their photo moment, so I do invite all my colleagues with the weapon of mass capturing, that is your camera, to document this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a tea break now, and that will be taking exactly 15 minutes. Touch wood, inshallah. And then we will be reconvening in this very room to continue with what is the 6th International Off-Grid Renewable Energy Conference and Exhibitions. We've just concluded the conversation on energy for development, the critical role of off-grid renewables in empowering lives and livelihoods. After our 15-minute tea break that commences immediately right now, we continue with this event. Thank you for your kind attention.